the biggest mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make early on is they hang on to people for too long.
If you're spinning your wheels in your business and you are constantly putting out the same fires, it probably goes back to this headphone analogy of how many of your people have been asked to do something or be a steward over something and they don't understand the why and how important it is to stay looking over it.
Welcome to the Premium Mindset, the weekly podcast where homegrown entrepreneurs and business owners, Evan Ritchey and Cameron Bawden, share the good, the bad, and the ugly of modern entrepreneurship and reveal what really happens behind the scenes of their personal and professional lives. As owners of two of America's fastest growing and most disruptive companies, Coconut Cleaning and Green Mango Pest Control. Stay tuned for real stories, struggles, insight, and advice from real entrepreneurs in real time.
I love when you go on vacation because you always have this business principle that you experience out in the wild, whether it's like through the hotel systems or just any other business you interact with. And you were telling us about your interaction up in Park City.
Yeah. So when we were planning, we went up, and it was the first time that my kids like really wanted to go snowboarding and learn how to snowboard. And we had a great time. The snow was kind of horrible. Utah hasn't gotten the most snow this year, but so the first day we went out and we snowboarded and it was a great time. The second day we're like, hey, let's go to the tubing hill. And what's cool about the tubing hill, it's just like 15, 20 minutes down the canyon from Park City. Is that when we went there 5 years ago, and we've gone almost every year since, but it started out as this little hut, and you'd go to this little hut and you'd buy your ticket and you'd ride this like little escalator thing up the mountain, and you just have a great time going down. Like you'd be going so fast, and there's 4 different lanes, and you do it as a group, and you could just feel like some little family had this amazing idea. Hey, let's create a tubing hill. No one loves to walk up the hill and go down. So let's just put money into this like escalator system. Right. And that's all it was. They sold hot cocoa on the side, and I haven't been back there for 3 years. We come back now, and there's this huge trampoline park. It's now called Woodwork, and inside like massive building, they have this huge like a full-on ski lift on the side of the tube hill now, to where it's just like I don't know what they call it, but like it's just like all the jumps, all the rails for skiers and snowboarders to go hit it. It's like a skate park.
Park.
And then they have the bunny hill, and so it's just this full production now, right? And it's like, dang, like there's a lot of money in this, I guess. Like these guys are really doing it. So we grab our ticket and we're going up the first time, and my kids are just asking a ton of questions. They're 12 and 9. They don't know what's going on. And as we get onto the escalator, there's this worker that's going to replace his shift, is what I kind of gathered, right? There's people all over the mountain to like help you get on, get off, push you down the hill. And so this guy looked like he was coming up, and I noticed he had his AirPods in.
His personal AirPods.
His personal, I would imagine, like they have radios and they have like the little like twirl things, like a secret service people have, you know? So I think that's their work radio. But this guy had his like white AirPods in. And Banks turns around, my little 12-year-old, and starts asking him questions, and one word answers. And so it's me, Banks, and then this worker going up the mountain, and I'm turning around looking at Banks, listening to him like ask him questions about, hey, like how fast do you get going? Hey, like, you know, like, can I do this? Can I do that? And the kid just like one word answers, as if he's like totally just interrupting what he's got going on, and just, you know, would answer and then kind of like look off or kind of like get back into a daze. I'm like, what the heck, dude? Like, all right, whatever. That guy's a loser. You know, he's a teenager. We go further up the mountain, right? Because there's 2 like little escalator things. And I get to the top, and there's this other employee who's watching the belt, right? And he's got his AirPods on.
So the bell, just because I've just became familiar with skiing. So the bell's like where it turns and comes back?
Well, that's a lift. So you have that, which is typical. Or like on the bunny hill, you have this conveyor belt. You know, like at the airport, you get on like, what are they called? They're not escalators, but it's like the walking sidewalk.
Yeah.
What's it called? There's a name for it.
It's literally called a walking sidewalk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so it's like that. It's a rubber belt that you just stand on, and it just goes. So his job is to sit at the top, and if anyone falls off this little ride, he stops it, right? Well, he's watching his phone, like he's literally looking down and does not look up as I get off. So I go around 2 more times, 3 more times. By the 4th time, I'm like, this freaking D-bag, bro. Like, I make a huge noise, like I fall off, and he's still just like locked in. And then by the 6th time, there was a mom that actually like fell off with a kid, and like what I would deem is like, hey, stop the belt. Scenario.
It's just gonna keep feeding kids up to that where that kid fell.
Well, yeah, bro. And there's like it's not a clip, but it's like it's a drop off. Yeah. You know, like, and this particular kid was probably 3, and he was scared to get on the belt, and like he didn't want to get on. The mom's fumbling with 3 tubes, and they didn't stop it. And then and I just noticed that worker, this worker, when I got up there, every single worker had their AirPods in. And I'm just thinking, like, man, these guys are missing out. Because when I think about the Great Wolf Lodge, and I've shared my experience there with the Great Wolf Lodge, is that it's just night and day experience. And I'm not saying, oh, like, you have to be a Great Wolf Lodge. But when I think about some of the takeaways when I talk about the Great Wolf Lodge, it's how attentive the employees are. Right. Literally, when no one's in the pool, they're still scanning every single square inch of the pool to make sure no one's drowning. Yep. They're making sure that when a kid asks them a question, like, they're locked in and they're giving them the greatest experience. Yep. Whereas at Woodwork, we still had a good time, but I just think there's so many entrepreneurs, and this is what I want to talk about today, is that there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are missing the boat by not having a policy in place that your employees cannot have headphones in. Yep. And here's my thing, that if you're listening to this and you don't have a policy in place, your employees are they are doing this. I guarantee it. Right.
And if you're listening to this, obviously you have your unique story, right? But this isn't about tubing. It's about culture. And when you were telling me the story, and I was like, oh man, like, again, compare that to your Great Wolf Lodge experience. I think that it's been through you when I started, this business with you 9 years ago, where I was able to better appreciate that, hey, when you find, like, to me at the time, and I always say it's annoying, but like, I just remember the feeling when you're like, hey, I texted this manager of yours about coming out to my house and they haven't responded in 3 hours. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Cameron, like, but you were always illustrating to me, like, if you are an entrepreneur and you're wearing a hat, a responsibility, right? And you pass it off to somebody else now that's in your organization, and they are not following through that responsibility at the highest level, because you were doing it at the highest level with the 20 other things that you're doing. But what we're talking about here is the importance of running a business and organization where every person that you appoint as a steward over a certain responsibility is following through at the highest level. And specifically to the headphones,
if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're loving what we're talking about, but you're still confused of where to go and how to accomplish it, that's exactly why we started the 1% Club. We go through playbooks that teach you exactly how to do it and when to do it. And so I want you to click the link below that talks about the 1% Club, and we want you to join with us.
I can also highlight a story about headphones that highlights the importance of following through on standards. Is I talk about often, because we own Coconut Cleaning together, and your family is deeply rooted in Arizona. Mine's not. And to get started, you were like, hey, go to my sister's house and clean. Go to my brother's house and clean. And so I met all these really deep-rooted Arizona people that referred business for us. And so I knew how important running a premium business was to you. And right away, I would never wear headphones, right? But when you hire that first person, you don't really think to like, oh, I know I won't wear headphones, but I don't think I've said to anyone that you can't wear headphones. So we have Nano, who's a music artist. He's a rapper, and he's honestly was a great person. But we had this experience with a customer luckily I was only 6 months in to like create this policy where he always wore his headphones after he left the office. I didn't know. And this customer calls in and she says, hey, I tried going up to him like 10 times to get him to like
10 times. Come on.
She said 4 to 5 times. But what she said was like, I went up specifically 4 to 5 times. However, in the other times where he was in the living room cleaning, like I would kind of look to him to see if we were going to make eye contact. And he was just in the zone. Yeah. She's like, he was so nice, so awesome. But like, can you guys come back and clean my couch? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so the next morning I said, hey, no headphones. And for 6-7 years, we've done really, really good with that. Now, there's always the trust but verify, right? So in our monthly meetings during tune-ups, we remind people of certain rules and policies that were on page 20 of their training when they came on board, right? So now it's in a training on a slide that you don't wear headphones, but we still remind. However, 4 months ago, same exact scenario. There's a very lively team worker of ours, and he was in a house with headphones when I went to go help him clean. And right there, I was like, hey, man, no headphones. He's like, oh, bro, sorry. Like, they're just on a conference call in their room. I'm like, no headphones. And he was like nice to me, obviously, but okay, cool. Part of me is like, I just know he's going to do that again. So the next morning, we reminded everyone. 2 weeks later, a customer calls in and says, hey, this guy was in my house. And again, super nice, but he wasn't really attentive to me. He was just listening to music the whole time. We let him go right away. And then we brought that to the whole team and said, look,
this is a seasoned technician, right?
Yes.
That has a high job average.
Yes.
That is very personal. Because if it's the guy that I don't know his name, but he was dancing, he was on our social media. My wife was like, I want him. We let him go because of this.
Yes.
And this is what I want to just highlight, guys. The biggest mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make early on is they hang on to people for too long. And I think about this every time I see a coach being fired. So in recent, the Baltimore Ravens head coach just got fired this morning. He's been with the Ravens for either 16 or 18 seasons, has won a Super Bowl. His track record exceeds his loss record of wins versus losses. 12 playoffs in the last 18 seasons. Like, dude, what more do you want?
Don't tell me like
Gone.
texting and driving.
No. Just, hey, you're not getting the job done.
Got it.
You're done. Why don't we take our businesses that seriously? And when you say, hey, I fired this guy, which my wife is kind of hard to impress, this is the guy that my wife's requesting, Evan, just let him go. What are you doing hanging on to that guy right now that is bending the rules half the time? Are you holding on to him? What's the standard? So when I look at the tubing hill and I was like, oh, this one employee has it. And then as I go up the mountain, the second guy has it, the third guy. And by the end, there was only one person that didn't have headphones on out of probably 8 employees on the hill. And it was a girl. I don't know if there's any correlation there, but it's like,
definitely not,
but the point is wow, if one employee sees that they're okay with it, the rest are going to follow.
Yep.
And that's the problem, why you have to hold your standard and be absolutely crazy about whatever it is that you want to be crazy about that you feel like is going to enhance the experience.
So if you're enjoying this podcast, I just had an experience with franchisees because Cameron and I are still building a national company. And I was able to illustrate to them how important it is to stay on top of their leads, that before they pass it off to a family member, that they need to have the SOPs that we already have. So it's clear, the stats are out there. Franchising is an accelerator for you to not only start a business, but to be able to grow at a pace that just starting a regular company, you just can't do. So if you're interested in franchising with us at Coconut Cleaning and you want to jump into a system that's ready to go, click the link below and we'd love to talk to you soon. And again, I compliment you often on this podcast because I feel like so much of the application of what premium looks like, I learned from you. But what I've always respected about you is that you've always been willing to have the reinforcement of standards to partners, to employees, to vendors, to the people that clean our office. It doesn't matter for you. And I just remember always seeing that. Like, you could be your partner of 2 years, but it's like if you didn't bring something to the meeting that you were supposed to, it's like, can you not do that? Can you make sure that you have this again? So we're not just talking about when you have these standards and policies. Again, if you bring all this together, it's you start your business, you're doing all these responsibilities, and then you finally get yourself into a position to hire people. And I said this yesterday. I didn't even really understand what I was saying when I was putting it all together, but you have to respect the standards that got you in a position to have a team. And the only way that you can do that is having the standard operating procedures. And what I really liked about what you did in the last 2 years of Green Mango is you made that leadership manual. I think it was 14 chapters. And you were like, there's 52 weeks. We're going to be able to go through every chapter 3 times this year. So during the manager meetings, I want you to choose a topic from, like, literally just go in chronological order and choose a highlighting principle and then an action of what's doing that this week. So if you own a business, and you probably do because you're listening to this podcast, these little stories that Cameron finds out in the wild while he's interacting is simply to just fall back on what made Green Mango so successful and what is making Coconut more successful and an appealing place to come franchise with. It is that we have these standards that are tried and true across the board wherever you operate. That if you call your leads under 5 minutes, you have the highest probability of getting a hold of the lead. If you hold weekly one-on-ones with your people, you have probably the highest probability of having your employees be retained as long as possible and held to the standards. So the policies that we've made, that we've lived by ourselves, have become ingrained into the people. And if you're spinning your wheels in your business and you are constantly putting out the same fires, it probably goes back to this headphone analogy of how many of your people have been asked to do something or be a steward over something and they don't understand the why and how important it is to stay looking over it.
I want to share one more story that touches on that. I was watching Alex Herbosi's thing that he released within the past 7 days of a recap behind the scenes of when he launched his $100 million offer book and did over $100 million, right? One of the things that stood out to me that he had 300 salesmen ready to go, take phone calls. And one of the things that he told them is be patient with them and take your time. Yeah. Like he made that an emphasis that even though we're going to do $100 million worth of sales in, I think it was 72 hours, and there's 300 of you, like what, did they sell 3 million copies or what was it? Was it over 4 million, I think. Yeah. Like imagine taking 4 million worth of calls, hello, goodbye, like the just repetitiveness of that. Like everyone's asking the same questions. How boring is that? Like we get in those routines of like, yeah, I've heard this before, and you just become monotone. He said, take your time and like appease to that customer. Like don't be getting on the next one. And so it was a reminder that, guys, if you're not teaching and reapplying and following up with your people on these things, like they're gonna fall down into these bad habits of just, hey, yep, $299, what else do you need? Click. Hey, yep, $299 or $200, whatever it was, click. Same thing. We're gonna get into some calls of Coconut. When I heard her pitching, she was talking about the hallway. I guess we charged $10 per square foot or something.
$2 per linear foot.
$2 per linear foot. It was just like $2. Like it would just became. She said it 1,000. She's said it 1,000 times, and it sounded like she said it 1,000 times. So how can you make that sound great? Hey, one thing that's really special about us is, instead of coming out and doing this and that, and it's compare and contrast and making the customer excited. She's sick of saying it, and it's conveying over to the customer. We need to remind people. It's not that she's doing anything wrong. We just need to keep reminding people of it, right? We need to remind people, hey, when you have your headphones in, even though you think the customer's not home, they're probably going to come home and ask you a question. And if you have your headphones in and your back's at them because you're power spraying a wall, a fence, a shrub, whatever, or you're cleaning the carpet, they're not going to ask you anything. When you can engage with the customer and you can show them that you're personal, that you're a great guy, that you're trustworthy, that, what XYZ, they want to buy more. They want to call Coconut out more. They want to be a lifetime customer. That's the X factor that people have within business. And so the mistake that I see is that entrepreneurs aren't focusing on it. They're not sticking to their guns on what does make a true premium experience. I laugh. I just invested into this company, this toaster company, and his whole thesis is he's going backwards of he wants to create a toaster that doesn't have obsolescence. So every toaster is designed right now to last 3 years. He says, I want to create a toaster that'll last 100 years because that's what they used to last. And it's funny. I think the way to stand out now in a service company is by going back the old school way. It's wearing the booties. It's wearing the white glove. It's interacting with a customer. It's, just the good old handshake and saying hi and looking people in the eyes. I'm getting off topic here, but it's like one thing that I teach banks is when you meet someone new, you shake their hand and you look at them in the eyes and say, hi, I'm Banks. What's your name?
Yep.
As simple as that is, every high net worth person that Banks introduces himself to, they come back to me and say, wow, what a remarkable young man. And how easy is that?
Right.
And I need to teach Banks because now he's it's like kind of a robot now.
Yeah.
Especially this weekend, he met a lot of new people at the Lulu Bug event that we went to that we invested in. And he'd be like, hey, I'm Banks. You know, he'd be like, my dad, like pretty much my dad told me to do this. Like, I'm Banks. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Like, hey, Banks, you need to kind of, you know, adjust your tones.
That's your mom. That's your mom. You already met her.
So anyways, yeah, man.
So here's what I'd say again, just kind of wrapping up this topic, because we're trying to keep these short and sweet for you guys. Well,
real quick, how do you afford it? So how do you make sure your people are doing it? We need to get into that.
I think there's a few different angles in which you could take the topic, right? I feel like now I would say hire an assistant, but I remember myself even 2-3 years ago.
Hire an assistant to audit them?
No. Like I guess like here's what I was saying is that as the founder owner, right, you have your standards and you start doing your power washing business, your carpet cleaning, but whatever it is, right? If you have not written down like your SOPs and your standards and policies that you need people to follow, an auditor is going to take your standards and then have whatever they need to audit, they're going to marry it up against that. And that's what they're judging the call by. Where a lot of these like founders that I talk to, it's like they don't have anything written down anywhere. And so what you have to do is the hard thing first. You have to literally just write down, here's how I want my brand to look. Here's how I want my inside sales calls to sound like. And here's how many times I want you to roll over an objection. Here's how many times I want you to try to keep that customer, and here are the aces you can give them before they cancel their subscription. Everything has to be written down so that they know what the standard is to adhere to. And then I would say once everything's written down, you have to get an auditor. And even if you wear the hat yourself first, you have to have that position. And very simple, just being open. Our current auditor, we've had auditors be in-house here. Our current auditor is VA virtual assistant. She's amazing. We did interview her. We chose her for it. She helps in our finance department. And so what she does is she goes every day. She looks at the total volume of leads that came in. She makes sure that the lead nurture program that we have as our standard for how our leads need to be managed is adhered to. And she sends me an Excel list every single day of every lead, how it was dispositioned in the notes, and she pulls 15 phone calls from the previous day to make sure that what was said was in the notes, and that's how the lead was dispositioned, as well as a few other areas, right? So having someone be an auditor or a watch guard over the thing that you deem as important is the first thing you need to do the second you pass off any hat or responsibility to somebody else. And if you can't afford $12 an hour, then the thing you've passed off isn't important enough in terms of like where you could be spending your time and making money. Because you said if you can't afford it, it's like,
well, that's the thing, is that look, no company is perfect. Coconut's not perfect. We could always find something, but if you hire someone if the policy is important enough, like one, make sure what you put into place is important, but two, if it's that important, it should make you enough money that the 20% of mistakes that they make are able to be caught and not only like save the company's its money, but also pay for that person actually doing it. And then again, it stops the bad habits.
Yep.
If they had, I'm not saying this tubing kill needed, an auditor to make sure no one was wearing headphones, but maybe the manager's goal that month was to, hey, we need to nip this in the butt. As soon as they find that one person, they're written up. Hey, after that, they're gone. Now they set the standard. Now no one has headphones on. Yeah. There's times and there's seasons. One of the things I love too, if you're so cheap and you can't buy in on this policy that, hey, an auditor will literally pay for itself, is that we would do customer surveys. And so we created a web form that made it easy for a customer to go and fill out. We'd call them beforehand and say, hey, look, there's 5 things we want you to look for with this technician. If you can fill this out, we'll knock off, I don't remember the exact amount, but $10, $15 off your service today. And I loved it because one, it was quality control on our technicians, but two, it was a touch point to our customers, let them know like, hey, we care about like premium. We care about quality. We care about making sure you have the best experience. Yep. And like the web form was professional. We were adding like things in there to, again, my whole goal at Coconut and Green Mango is to brainwash the customer to make them think and know that we are the best. Yep. So where's our proof that we're doing those things? Like we would do those in flyers. We do them on those surveys. We do them on the website. Just every single touch point on social media, obviously. And so there's really no excuse for you not to have some type of auditing in place, whether that's through surveys or an actual person doing it. Because what I promise you is that if you have employees on their phone, it is going to cost you a ton of money. But also if you have a policy in place and you're not checking up on it, most of the time people won't follow it.